put it off long enough. Pretty exciting. So this what this video is going to be about. It is live, so whatever. Let's see. Are we paused? Okay. Weird. I don't know why sometimes the live videos are like that. But anyways, like I was saying, is we're diving into the lion's share today, and put it off for a while. But now that I'm in it, I'm actually pretty excited. Just gonna do chapter 1. So we're gonna try to stay focused on chapter 1. So from from my first read through, map is kind of like the main thing that I got up. Hey, what's up, John Arnold? Talking about JCB's book. There's treasure inside. Specifically chapter 1, and I'm gonna talk about some of the lion's shares clues I think I found. So I read the book. I think I've read 5 times now, cover to cover, but this is the last time I was actually looking for clues. I've been doing a lot of focusing on the small boxes, on the small chapters, but I'm kind of stuck with a lot of those. Thanks. So I'm trying to go back through, and now we're looking at chapter 1. So the good thing is because I've waited this long to get into the lion's share and to actually try to draw clues or themes from the books, is JCB has said in interviews a couple things about it. So he's mentioned before that chapter 1 is like one of the most important ones. He's mentioned that his book has themes that we should be looking for, and in the text it talks about how this book, the chapters will let us interpret the other things. All right, so here's what I've got. Oh, and another good thing about it is because we have general areas for most of the other small boxes that most people agree on, it takes away. We don't have to look for the lion's share with the whole United States because of there won't be 2 boxes in a state. There won't be boxes that are state to state. So because we kind of have rough areas for the other 4 small boxes, we can kind of look for states that aren't mentioned in the other 4. Okay, so that's kind of the introduction. All right, so the way I'm interpreting this first chapter is we're looking for a map, a road map, because it's mentioned so many times, and it's a good thing when you're looking for treasure, you need a map. So as if you're being introduced to the whole treasure book, chapter 1, it would make sense to have a map in it. So I don't think that we're looking for like an actual map in this chapter. I think it's more of like a business term, right? Like a roadmap for a business. Or I guess, you could apply if you're in school, a roadmap for a paper, an essay, more of an outline, all right? But some things that maps do have are keys and legends. So I think that's something that's in the back of our heads we're looking for, is like keys, legends, and scale, but not figurative, right? Kind of like applying that to treasure hunting and to the other chapters. So that being said, I'm kind of looking at more the meat of the chapter, and by the meat of the chapter, I mean you need an introduction and you need an outro, or you need a segue, a couple paragraphs, or else the chapters would just be too jarring for the reader. And sometimes you can look and see how some of the segues are kind of forced, like a sentence or 2 at the very end, but he does put those in there. So I don't think there's going to be anything. I'm not looking for the clues in like the last 2 or 3 paragraphs or sentences. Maybe I'll say the last 2 paragraphs of each chapter. All right. So for me, I'm not really looking at those, and I'm not necessarily looking for the first 2 paragraphs either. It's more the meat. Now you can have, if he wants us to, and it seems like this is the path he's going. He's throwing multiple clues out. So there can be, if a theme, it can be mentioned a few times. Hey, what's up, Teha? So all that being said, roadmap is what we're looking for. Also the names of people that are mentioned, because he chose each story very intentionally. So there's 65 to 70, he said, treasures, right? So, but he only picked 20, 24-ish, because some of the or maybe let's go with 30, because he pushed some treasures together in some of the books, right? So he picks the treasures specifically, and I think that's to give some of the names of some of the people. So some of the main characters for this first chapter, all right, you have his son is introduced. Family goes along with the theme, very important to him. It's like the first thing you mentioned in your bestseller treasure book is your son, right? So that's important to note. But you look at the main characters. You have Steve Jobs, referred to as Jobs or Steve in the text. Either way, you have Wozniak, all right, referred to as Woz multiple times. Also Wozniak, so he refers to him as both. And then you have Mike Scott, all right, referred to as Mike Scott. So on page 22, hey, what's up, Crazy Gamer? So he mentions Mike Scott went by Scotty, all right, and Wozniak was called Scott. It's page 22. But instead of referring to him as Scotty, he continues to refer to him as Mike Scott. So I think that's pretty intentional. Just from scanning the pages, I get a lot of M's, a lot of W's, a lot of S's, all right? From all the capital words stand out, so that's just a visual. I also believe that the relationship between photos and text is kind of introduced in this chapter. And so what I mean is this. He talks about his treasures, right? Which, if it's a treasure book, I think... I'm sorry, man. I don't know what Bolo or Hindi is, and I'm not Hindi. But Hindi is cool. Anyways, so he talks about his treasures, right? But it's odd to mention why is Scotty, right? Not to be confused with Scotty from Star Trek. And I haven't heard a lot of opinions on this publicly. So here's what I think. My opinion of it is that he's introducing a theme that, hey, some of the pictures are going to be pictures of my treasure, and those should be looked at a certain way. Any picture that's not of my treasure should be looked at another way. And there are several pictures like that in the book where it's mainly his treasure, right? Then some of its location are historical. But then there's other pictures that are something he mentioned in text that's not a treasure and it's not a location. I think those should be classified a separate way. So we're looking at roadmap, we're looking at rules. I think there's a rule to look at for treasure photos, there's a rule to look at for location photos, and then there's a rule to look at for photos that don't apply to either category. As far for right now, I plan to do not one a day, but I'll do a video on each chapter. And right now I'm not really including the outlines of and what I mean by outlines is the outlines of the pictures. I just haven't found in my research that they're really playing that big of a part right now. Maybe later. I mean, I do have them grouped. There's pairs, there's triplets, there's several photos that match each other, and there's common themes in each of the chapters they appear in. I'm just not going to cover that right now. And if I haven't said it before, or if you're joined in right now. Yeah, exactly, right? So, speaking of a good Brian Bale, I appreciate that. Speaking of paying royalties, like he could have paid, there is an amount of money that he could have paid Nintendo, right? I mean, they could have come to an agreement for him to license the Nintendo characters, the Pokemon characters, but he didn't. He went with another option. Again, same thing with the Olympic rings. I really didn't want to get out of this chapter, but since we're talking about it, yeah, the Olympic rings are very jarring. As far as, everything else is really high quality, really expert photographs, whatnot. And then you have the Olympic rings that just look like Microsoft Paint circles. So I have notes for the rings. I don't really want to get into it too much now, but I do think that there's a reason whenever he includes a photo that's not of his treasure or that's not of a specific location. Do you think any box in California? Yes, I do. I think one of my previous chapters, I kind of feel like it has to be. You got to show the West Coast love. Can't neglect the West Coast. But I don't think this box is in. I think any state mentioned in this first chapter is out of play. So California's mentioned, Oregon's mentioned. I think for the lion's share, we can cross those two off. Just because it would be too obvious. Unless you want to get into the whole double bluff kind of thing. But as for right now, that's the kind of logic I'm carrying forward. No, I think that living in California for, I don't know, I think he's lived there for a while, let's say over a decade. I think he's very aware of the Southern California's troubles with the fire, with the dry climate, with the Santa Ana winds and all that. So I don't think he would have put any in place of fire. Same, I don't think he would, I think he would have mapped out avalanche zones, volcanic zones, earthquake zones. I think he would have looked at the country as a whole and looking at all the natural disasters, hurricane zones, tidal flats, flood zones. I think that's one of the first things he did is look at all the possible dangers that would change of his, especially if he's thinking 5 to 8 years, right? He's thinking that. So I think he would have looked in all those dangerous zones and kind of mapped out where the safest spot from acts of nature, acts of God would be for the boxes. That's my thoughts on that for right now. Okay, so again, we're going back to the chapter. A lot of the text, and when you're looking at the text, I would look for patterns. And what I mean by patterns is how does he work each chapter? So there's an introduction and there's an outro. We know about that. Hey, Mojave Menace, what's going on, man? And then there's like a story or two. And inside the stories, there's a lot of times double stories. I've kind of picked up on this. And what I mean by a double story is, so you have the treasure book as level 1, right? And then you have chapter 1 is talking about, kind of the early stages of Apple. All right, so that's level 2. And then you have another level where he'll tell a story in a story. For example, the badge, right? He'll tell a story of a story. He's talking about Apple, talking about the early inception, and then he tells a little story about anecdote, if you will, about the badges. All right. So I think those are pretty, because I've pretty much found each chapter has at least like 1 or 2 of those, and so I think for me that is where I'm looking for the main clue, because it kind of follows a pattern for the book similar to his individual chapters. There's levels, there's layers, however you want to call it. So for me, that's what I'm looking for, is I'm looking for the stories in a story. And so if you look at a story in a story, and if you're reading this now live, and if you can think of another story in a story in the Apple chapter, go ahead and let me know in the comments, because that's the main one. Or you could also say the color beige, right? So stories in the stories are the badge number, right, with the 0, the 1, and the 007, and then the color beige. If you can think of any other stories in the stories, or if this gets posted and you're reading this comments later, go ahead and post it, and I'll reply back to it. But so I think that those are important. I don't think the actual numbers are, as far as like we're looking for a 0, a 1, and a 7, and some mashup of them is going to be a lead us to the box, like with either coordinates or I don't know, a highway, road. I don't think it's like that, because again, remember, this first chapter is a roadmap chapter. It's kind of leading us for how we should interpret the rest of the chapters. Now, if we find numbers in another chapter, or if we find a pattern that every time there's a story in a story, there's numbers, maybe putting all those together can be something. But as for right now, I'm just trying to go through chapter by chapter, and so I'm not really saying that for this one. All right, so I've talked a lot. We're approaching 15 minutes. Let me try to recap my main thoughts for this chapter. Is that chapter 1 is a roadmap. When you're looking at roadmaps, you're looking for a key, for scale, for clues, all right? A legend, if you will. And so I think the clues for this first chapter are pictures that don't relate to the text. I'll say it that way. And I think that's why he did such a jarring one, right? When you're looking through, it just really sticks out at you. And even the caption, not to be confused with Scotty from Star Trek, right? That's kind of jarring. Where do you think the Pokemon box is? Because I see people saying different things like it. Yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty sold on Arkansas. The more time that goes by, the more people that go there and don't find anything, I kind of start to branch out. Look for a plan B. I don't think Florida. What's MO? Is MO Montana? Is MO? I can't remember off the top of my head. Missouri. And Missouri is really far north. I just think that it's for him to mention, circular path and the route back and forth. Missouri is really far north, so I really don't think Missouri is. It opens up a whole nother can of worms, if it is in Missouri, because then people have been taking what he says in the book literally. So I think that, or not literally, but taking him as his word. Okay, MO is Missouri. Yeah, I think if the Pokemon box is in Missouri, then that really stretches the boundaries of what he's saying, which we'd have to apply. If the box is found in Missouri, then we'd have to go back and look at everything else he said and really change kind of what we think. And I think Florida is too far south. And as far as the forests that are there, there are some good forests in northern Florida. But again, that's kind of off the beaten path too. You'd have to go almost, you'd be intentional going straight down. I could see, here's other states that I could see. I could see Alabama. I could see Mississippi. Those are really much the only ones I could see. And I've looked in there to try to make the clues fit. I just haven't found any area that fits as much as Arkansas does. All right, so going back to chapter 1. I mean, there are a lot of numbers mentioned in here, and so maybe down the road that the numbers that aren't mentioned in the stories, like the 2.5 trillion, 1981. I mean, maybe those could be something. But the interesting thing to me about the numbers is a few of the dates that he did get wrong. He said when they were called out and when he mentioned them, he said, I didn't get anything wrong intentionally. Or he wasn't worried as correcting the numbers as far as the errata list. So to me, that kind of signified, especially the floppy disk. That was another one that was a 3.5 versus 5.3. He wasn't as, which if that was a major clue, I would have felt like there would have been more urgency behind getting it correctly and publishing that information out to the public. But because, and another, I don't want to get out of the chapter, but I am, the Ernest Cline's date. And as far as you look at the numbers that have been corrected, and there have been a decent amount of dates and numbers that were corrected, yeah, I just don't believe that for right now, those are as important. And again, that would be too much of a surface level, right? That'd be pretty easy. I mean, not easy, but easy compared to everything else. If you just looked at the book, grabbed all the numbers, and then brute force them to find coordinates or some other significance for it. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. What do you think about the apple orchard? Steve Visits has mentioned. Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. So let's see. Yeah, I remember that. We're looking at page, because you got the Apple page. Is it 22? Early days of Apple. Maybe page 20. Bum, 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 bum. If you remember, it's not a normal apple orchard. I'm trying to find, if you have it in the top of your head, if you remember which page it's on, you can throw it out. Dead space. Sold off the new Buzz Apples first. Dinosaur Bones. Is it 21? 21, okay. I can forget. Okay, soon after returning from... Yeah, so I wouldn't classify, as far as stories in a story, I wouldn't classify that as a story in a story, because it's just one sentence, right? Soon after returning from a fruit orchard in Oregon, Jobs named their company Apple. As far as, it could be something that you want us to go to, that he's leading us, hey, figure out the name of this fruit orchard in Oregon, and then that's clue or significant. But I do think it's significant that he didn't mention Oregon. So I'm running under the impression that any state mentioned in the lion's share, or for any state mentioned in a chapter, I'm not looking for it as far as where the lion's share is. So I'm not looking in Oregon. Place all the boxes, truly beautiful places. Yes, I do agree, Mojave Menace. I do agree that it's every spot that we find is gonna be beautiful. When the pictures come out later, it's gonna be really amazing. It's not just gonna be a plain basic spot. Okay, yeah. So it's in commune. I mean, maybe if commune is a key word or something to focus on. I just don't think that as far as the chapters, I'm not looking for right now, I'm not looking for like a word. I'm not looking for each chapter as a word, and then we put all 24-ish words together and it spells a sentence. I'm looking for more abstract thoughts. Many Jobs fans think the orchard's where Jobs got his charisma and energy. Where that orchard? Oh, okay. Oh, so you're saying it's a commune, and so he went there, and that's where he got his mojo from, his charisma. I mean, maybe that would require a lot of maybe not a lot of research. I can't wait for the box to be found. See if it's, yeah. I mean, that's what we're all hoping for. That's why one of the reasons why I put so much of this stuff out there. Hopefully, it sparks something in someone. It helps them with their clue, and then a box is found. and then that'll kick this notch up to a second level, kick the hunt up to a second level, and we can all really really dig deep in here. But getting here kind of long, so I kind of want to recap my thoughts again. So as far as lion's share clue, if someone asked, hey, what did you get from chapter one? What are your clues from chapter one? All right, so I'm taking away, I guess, two things from this chapter. Homebrew Computer Club, unlike homebrew coffee. I'm taking away like two things. I'm taking away that look at the relationship between pictures and text. I think that's part of a roadmap. I think that's a legend for us, right? Look at the relationship in the following chapters between pictures and text, and look at which pictures don't fit. I guess you could say, kind of stand out. Now, what do we do with those photos? Is it, are we looking into the character? Are we looking into which way he's facing? Are we looking into? Someone said the original picture of Scotty was mirrored. All right, so that's twice in this chapter that's been mirrored, because the gems are mirrored, right? The gems are a mirror flip of each other, and that he says, page 24, the image in red shows what our sapphire appears like under ultraviolet light. So this has been, well, I won't say confirmed, because I don't know who people are over the internet, but from self-proclaimed jewel experts and sapphire experts, they're saying that this picture is not really what a gem, if you put the sapphire under ultraviolet light, that's not really what it would look like. That all that's been done to the photo is the original photo was been mirrored and then put under a red filter. All right, so that's twice in the chapter that there's been a mirror, because if you Google image search that picture, it's facing the other way. All right, so that's significant. That's one of the big themes and things from this chapter is the whole mirror. All right, and I think that's why M's and W's are so pronounced out there, right? That it's the M and a W is a mirrored. M is very symmetric, W is very symmetric. So if you want to get a little crazy, if you want to get a little far out there, I'm starting to look in Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin, purely based on where the other boxes are talked about and what area is not talked about. And I really liked the user that said yesterday about the forest divine. Earlier, I've been talking about, hey, I think that all pictures, all the boxes will be found in very different locations. Some will be in a high desert, some will be in, Badland area. But a user reminded me, and I wish I could remember your name, but I forgot. I apologize. That the forest divine is kind of a theme in here, about the forest, the magical force of nature, whenever JCB describes his time in the forest. So what if they're all 5 different kinds of forest, which the United States does support that. We have 5 very different kinds of forests in here. So that would also be another, not indicator, but strong leaning that, hey, it's okay to have if all 5 of your boxes are in forest. Upper Peninsula, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Mojave Menace. I'm really looking at Upper Peninsula in Michigan, because you'd also get into, sure, yeah, we're leaning toward the edge of the U.S., but you're also bringing in international, right? And it's been confirmed to me, again, I have to trust people say on the internet, but some people that are following this hunt from Canada are saying that the ads are running for this book in some of the Canadian areas along the border. Yeah, another thing, Jennifer, Alice a lot through the Looking Glass. That's something I thought about from Joy's Serenade when it talks. Let me flip to it so I can actually quote it. But the second or third stanza in Joy's Serenade, third one, last one. This is no imaginary wonderland. Now look, that's a call out to Alice in Wonderland. All right, so mirrored is a big theme in this book, mirrored and flipped, and I would say that chapter 1 introduces that. If you're reading through the book chronologically, what box do you find the most interesting? Appalachian Trail for me. Me personally, my personal history, I've spent the most time on the Appalachian Trail as far as like nature goes, just because a lot of my older years I lived in the DC metro or the DMV area, Maryland, Virginia. All right, so we're wrapping this up. Again, main points you want to get from chapter 1 are the themes of mirroring and flipping, and you want to get the relationship of text and images. And what I'm looking for is I got 3 or 4 states from there. We're looking at Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Once we can narrow it down, But I think I think that's pretty good. I don't really want to take it too deep. I don't want to get too crazy with looking at numbers and you know, doing all kinds of crazy shifts, ciphers, and puzzles. You know, oh, and the third one would be stories and stories. All right, so three main takeaways: stories and stories, mirror flipped images as a theme throughout the book, and the relationship between photos and text. All right, yeah, no problem, man. So that's wrapping it up. Unless there's anything else anyone wants to talk about. Yep, same thing with the P's and Q's, D's and B's. East Coast props. Yeah, East Coast, Beast Coast. Am I right? All right, can you tell me the small inscription on the inside cover? Yeah, I can read that off. Let me deal with the dead space for 1 minute. I'm gonna run. It's in the. I have the dust cover separate because I've used and bin this so much that I don't want to ruin the dust cover. So let me grab that real quick. All right. All right. I'm glad I wore pants one of this video, so that's a good thing. All right. So here's the dust cover. Is be solid, have grit, sparkle even as you pine. Here lies a joy divine. Let me show that for you real quick. I don't know if this is gonna be backwards for you. I don't know. Maybe you can take a quick screen grab. I don't know. As far as punctuation, so it's be solid, comma, have grit, semicolon, next line, sparkle even as you pine, period. Here lies a joy divine, period. All right, so hopefully that helps you out. Yeah, all right. All right, guys, that's it. Yeah, good day to wear pants. All right, later, guys. Bye.